Good morning. Just about tipped my camera over. Today we look at First Chronicles 25 through 27, and this is conversation about the musicians. And there's some discrepancy here because 25 starts out, says David and the officers of the army set apart for the service, the sons of Asaph and Herman. And it's kind of nice. Here we got a name, Herman. It's a name I know how to pronounce fairly easily. But, they were talking about setting aside, designating the musicians. I mean, they had designated priests for certain duties, and here now they're designating, musicians and everything. And verses 2 through 4, I mean, it basically, it lists a lot of these musicians. But then in verses, starting at verse 9, well, then some of the musicians are listed in different order. And another big discrepancy is that verse 8, or not 7, end of verse 7 says that all of those who were skilled numbered 288. But back in chapter 23, verse 5, when it was talking about musicians, it says there would, it says 4,000 gatekeepers and 4,000 shall offer praises to the Lord with their instruments. So there's quite a discrepancy from 4,000, praising God with their instruments to this 288. Now that's a vast discrepancy, and whatever it means, I guess. But they're talking about the naming of the musicians and giving them different tasks and different instruments to play, and again, I mean, like you said, Herman had 14 sons and 3 daughters. So, he had a band, of his family basically almost, but they were all designated out that way for the musicians. And in chapter 26 talks about the same for the gatekeepers, the divisions of the gatekeepers. And I don't know that there's a vast discrepancy of numbers there, but of the gatekeepers, there's it says that there was 4,000 of them back in chapter 23 verse 5, but there are fewer than 100 that are listed by name and mentioned here, which again may or may not mean anything. Maybe it's they're mentioning the leaders of the groups and not all of the other ones. It's just like the orchestra leader or the name of the New York Symphony whatever, and that it's what it is, but how many members? I mean, so, and again, I can't get bent out of shape too much by the discrepancies of numbers that way, just because of the detailing of it. It just there are so many things that could be left out or could be told in a different way. Just like I mentioned, it could be more of the head of the household or the head of the group or whatever it's talking about. So they're talking about the numbers of the people that way. And in verse 12 it starts out, the division of the gatekeepers according to their leaders had duties, and they mentioned the 4 gates. There was a gate on each of the sides: east, north, south, and west. And it's I think about that gate, the gates around the city of Jerusalem that they had, and I think about as last Sunday's reading from Revelation, in the New Jerusalem, it's got these high walls and there are 4 gates, but these gates are never closed by day or by night because there is no night. But here in this time when David was preparing to build, preparing materials for Solomon to build the temple, and they were rebuilding Jerusalem and inhabiting Jerusalem and protecting it, they had gates there that they were guarding the gates so that, and watching. I mean, maybe not guarding so much as having gatekeepers there to watch out for intruders or armies or for, others to come that way. So the gatekeepers were basically guards, to protect the rest of the city, the citizens of the city. And it talks about, that on the east there were 6 Levites each day, on the north 4 each day, on the south 4 each day, and so it's the gatekeepers. Here we got Levites being gatekeepers. The Levites, they're the priestly tribe, and so again there's different designations of duties for each and every one of them. It seems to be, and again it talks about a lot of names, and this one is his son, the dad, and his son, and his son, and his son, and his son's sons, and but they're all put in charge of the treasuries and the dedications of gifts, different ones. I mean, so you got gatekeepers, you got treasury keepers, you got all of these different officials in their responsibility. And then when we get into chapter 27, then we talk about the military divisions of for somewhat police protection. I mean, some of the military in place was the watchmen within the cities to make sure that there wasn't rampant crime, and to keep law and order within the cities. But also the militia was there to guard, to help the gatekeepers if there was an incident at the gate, and they had, and we've talked earlier about the mighty men and the let's see, it wasn't the mighty men, it's 30 mighty men and the 3 major men or whatever it was, but so like verse 6 of chapter 27 talks about this is the Benaiah, who was a mighty man of the 30 and in command of the 30. So he was the leader of the mighty men, the 30 mighty men. And so that it talks about like his division was 24,000. I mean, they have a sizable army. They have a sizable military contingency there at Jerusalem. And you think about, the size of the military. I mean, if you got 24,000 in this group, the 5th commander had 24,000 in his division. The 6th commander had 24,000. I mean, there were a lot of people in the military. So you think about the structure that there was needed to house all of them and to provide food and clothing and everything for them, and the horses and all of the support for all of the men. So I mean, Jerusalem was a huge city, a huge area, that probably encompassed more than just what was within the walls of Jerusalem. I couldn't tell you how many, how big Jerusalem is, from mile to mile. I mean, if I think about, some of our metropolitan cities are, I mean, like I think about the Twin Cities. You talk about Minneapolis, St. Paul. Well, it shouldn't be called the Twin Cities because there must be about, 30 towns or more, that make up that metropolitan area. And the same with so many of our large communities. I mean, Chicago, New York, and all of them. Phoenix is one of the few that has a tremendous landmass that is just Phoenix itself, but yet there are other smaller cities built up around it. And even, closer to home, I think about Fargo. You got Fargo and West Fargo, but within Fargo, you've got Prairie Rose, and you got, I mean, how many other smaller land areas have you got? And some of those were at one point in time, small cities. But anyway, many men, many people that are designated to be musicians and gatekeepers and the militia. David is putting everything in place, and maybe it isn't that he's doing everything right now, right at the very end, because he's had a lot of this in place before, but the writer is letting us know of David's plans for the future for the Israelites, plus his planning ahead for his son Solomon, as Solomon becomes king and takes over all of those duties. But it's also showing us how God led and provided for David, gave David the wisdom to get all of this set up and set in place. And it's there's still the 12 tribes of Israel, within within that as well. And so we've got some of the delineation or the different jobs given to different tribes because of that and everything as well. And so there's just a lot of organization that's been going on. And the writer of First Chronicles now, as we're nearing the end, tomorrow we've got just a couple chapters left of First Chronicles, but we're seeing the result of David's leadership of the people of Israel and his faithfulness to God, and how God faithfully led and provided for his people, which he still does to this very day. We've had another tragedy unfold in the last couple of days down in Texas, and it's one more of those things that to keep that community in our thoughts and prayers, and to know the pain and the heartache that is there because of the inappropriate actions of a person that way. And so I count my blessings each day as to living in relative safety and a peaceful area that way, although we never know where disaster can happen. May God watch over and bless you today.